the Grey Hat Beard podcast. Hello and welcome to show 21 of Grey Hat Beard, the modern workplace podcast where we talk about all things Microsoft 365. My name's Kevin McDonnell. I'm the Grey of Grey Hat Beard. I'm a solutions architect at CPS.
And I'm Alan Erdley, Office MVP, Hat Solution Architect at CPS.
And I'm Gary Trinder. I'm Solutions Architect at CPS. I am the Beard of Grey Hat Beard. I'm also a Microsoft MVP and member of the PNP team.
And we have a guest this week. So Clarissa, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, so I'm Clarissa. I'm the odd one out because I'm not a solutions architect at CPS. I am instead a Power Platform configuration consultant at ANS Group. And also alongside that, I am a technical storyteller for Microsoft's PowerCat team.
Which will be fantastic because we're going to talk about that in the second half about telling stories with the Power Platform. So we will come back to that and chat about that a bit more. Thank you. I did wonder where you were going when you said you're not like the rest of us, which Grey Hat Beards conversation where that was going. So thank you for making that a lot saner than I thought it may be. So it's a good start there. Let's get going with the news. And the first bit of news that I saw from Mr. Teeper, the godfather of SharePoint, who talked about the latest stats. I think it came with the kind of numbers from Microsoft, the quarterly updates. And with that, they gave the latest daily active users, which is now up to 115 million, which is absolutely incredible numbers for Teams. I've been tracking some of these as one of my talks that I do about driving Teams adoption with the Wear on Earth bot. And I've been tracking the numbers and doing the announcements there. And I think it started off about 15 million. Everyone's like, that's quite a lot. And then they overtook Slack, I think about 20 or 30 million. Then we suddenly hit the pandemic and the numbers just went up and up and up. And if I'm honest, I kind of thought they were going to come back down a bit. I thought that the peak, which was 75 million last time they talked about it, I thought people would start going back to work. We'd see the numbers tail off. So to see that carry on going to 115 million really is quite impressive. I think they shared some other stats about the amount of usage as well. It's not just people logging in. The amount of usage going on with Teams is still going on and on. It's incredible.
Daily usage, 115 million people. That's an awful lot for one platform, isn't it? When it's a business platform, 115 million people is an awful lot of people to be using that. I don't think they mentioned how many.
That's a lot
businesses.
of CPU.
Well, that's interesting though, isn't it? Because they haven't actually had any significant performance issues as it's been ramping up. There was some at the start, and some people have
What do you say about that, Gary, after your restart at the beginning of the show?
Yeah, I'll caveat that with, I suppose I had an update waiting. That always happens. But I think, yeah, Al's right, though. It's that we had a period of the downgrading of quality of the video and things like that. So, there's that period of kind of adjusting. And then it seems like all we've seen is just new features just arrive and not really noticing any downsides really,
because some of the things that they were doing were trying to level off the demand, but things like, as you say, downgrading the video, but also stopping some of the services. So OneNote, you couldn't edit in Teams, could you? Well, you can do that now. They've snuck that back in.
I always thought that was a bizarre thing to do. Why make OneNote read only for a performance perspective? It just baffled me, but obviously.
Yeah, maybe people drawing too many doodles in their OneNotes.
That's definitely Kev.
That's it. Yeah. Kevin with his 10 fingers all drawing at the same time.
It's an issue. I never thought about that really. I wonder if maybe with the client they can control how much it syncs and things like that. Whereas if you're going directly in Teams, but then you could update in the web as well.
Yeah, no, it's very strange. But I mean, you think about it, for a platform that has grown. That must be almost 100% in a year. No, much more than that.
More
than that. Sorry, that's a lot more than that. My maths isn't. It's late at night. My maths isn't working. But if you think about it, they're still rolling out changes on a regular cadence of changes, regular improvements. It's quite phenomenal.
We planned that conversation because now you mentioned that there's also the sprucing up of going to the Fluent interface. So they're obviously trying to standardize the design. And I saw Matt Wade had a good post on this showing the new icons. And I believe this is available on quite a few people who've got it in their tenants already. I did have a look earlier. I don't think it's hit any of ours yet.
No, I've seen mixed messages on some people have it on all of their tenants, and some people are kind of, I think it was Michael Pissarick was saying, well, actually, I don't have it on any of the 20 that I use.
Yeah,
and Matt Wade was saying, yeah, I've got it on all 5 of mine.
Maybe we need to control F5 and just do a quick refresh there, get everything through. But
quick
not a massive
maybe.
change. I did like Michael Pissarek, who was just like, yeah, still a bit like lipstick on a pig, really. So not a massive change to the interface. But,
yeah, I'm kind of a bit, okay. A bit, there's nothing much really there. They've made it a bit lighter. I mean, I don't use the light mode anyway. I use dark mode, so it's not something I'd want to look at. But
because I think the one thing that jumped out for me was the chat icon has changed, so it looks more like Messenger.
Oh yes, yeah. You just zoom in for those looking elsewhere. See, the icons have changed a little bit. I mean, it's really pandemic. If I look at that as Teams, it looks like people have put on a bit of weight there. So it really is the true lockdown version.
Well, isn't that fluent? It's just generally everything's a bit rounder.
Yes.
So maybe that's it. Maybe it's make everyone feel a bit better about
exactly. Be interesting if there's any performance improvements or anything like that with it, or if it makes it worse. I don't know, but nice. I think what I do like is we're starting to see that consistent design across everything. So that, especially when you're developing, it's now no longer all the 3 different ways that you can develop for it. It'll now be a single way. So the move towards that means that when you're developing your SPFX, whether it's in Teams, whether it's in SharePoint, will start to look a lot more aligned. And I think that's a nice one. So I think worthwhile for that. Anyway. The other nice news, I thought, Carolina Ketikari, who joined us on the what was it? Not Teams Fest, Comsverse to talk about session. She saw some of the new scenes that we're going to be able to use. So we'll be able to sit in, as we were saying before the show, we can join Bill and Ted, sit in the Bill and Ted world. We can put in a maybe a rustic amphitheatre. Not entirely sure what's going on there.
Though. Surely it's going to look like people have just like floating heads. You know, like
like Futurama.
Yeah, it's like the other ones are kind of like you're sat in a chair, but your body's kind of covered, right? Which makes sense. But that one just looks a bit odd. Yeah,
I do think that one is the odd one out, isn't it? There isn't a modernistic sort of sci-fi type one, but they've gone kind of. I thought of Aztecs for some reason when I saw that.
They got the kind of Star Trek style, and I noticed they got the numbers. So actually, we're going to get whereas we have the kind of 50. It looks like there's some smaller numbers that you can have. And I know Jeff Tieber had that one, didn't he? With the people sat around there who looked like they had very short desks on.
Yeah, that one on the right. That's for interviews.
Yeah,
that's the interview panel, isn't it?
Yes, that'd be quite a good one. So intriguing. I have to say, I really like these. A little bit unsure about some of the new ones, but the capability I think is brilliant.
They still don't have the Muppet Show one though.
I'm missing a trick there.
Oh, absolutely,
plenty of Muppets in there, just not in the actual.
Lined you up for that one.
And I haven't heard anything, but they surely must be thinking about how you can make your own as well.
Yeah.
So we can have our Grey Hat be a picture with actually properly have us in there embedded. That could be quite interesting.
I think it's good with the scenes. I mean, you can't go far now on Twitter without seeing a user group and the together pictures. So, it's good to see it. It's a bit different, isn't it, than just kind of seeing just a few faces on a meeting. You get everyone there. It feels a bit more of a community as well. Now that we can't all be in the same place, but at least it looks like we are.
And it's interesting, the number of people that still don't know about it. We had a company meeting and he did exactly that. Let's all get together. Let's put all our pictures up there. Hit the 50 threshold. Sorry for those left out, but loads of people were like, "Oh, I haven't seen this. Oh, this is very nice." And kind of.
And the one thing that we did do was the whole kind of individual boxes as well. That was quite incredible. of it rather than just using together mode, and it was kind of like a huge game of celebrity squares.
Yes,
pretty cool.
Other vaguely Teams news, people might not have seen this one. Fantastic site called Lego Ideas. If you haven't seen it, do go and explore it, because people submit ideas for new Lego kits, and it's all run by Lego. And if it gets enough votes, a bit like User Voice, they'll actually make a kit. And don't think she listens, but my wife's Christmas present is actually the new Sesame Street kit, which came from this. So you can buy a new Sesame Street idea, and she's loved that, and she wanted that or earrings, and I was like, yeah, there's no choice really of what I'm going to choose there. Nice.
Having a look now.
If you're a little bit bored about some of the backgrounds you've had for a while, the new Lego backgrounds really, really nice. They're just about missed Halloween, unfortunately, but hopefully they'll put some more out. There's a lot in there that are non-Halloween themed, so definitely worth a look on that one. Gary, you picked up something that happened yesterday, the final death knell. Not enough of hint. Workflow.
Yes, workflows. Yes. Actually, it was surprising because I expected a lot of people to be jumping up and down about this potentially, but it seems to, well, from what I've seen, it seems to have gone.
Usually takes 3 days before people realise their workflows.
Possibly, yeah. Maybe it's not quite got through the ticketing system yet.
Nobody's noticed because those tickets aren't being raised anymore.
That is a very good point. Yeah. We're talking about SharePoint 2010 workflows in SharePoint Online. So this was mentioned a couple of months back that they were going to be completely stopped. You can't create them.
Not that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago, no. So it's been a bit of a quick turnaround, and I must admit that when the announcement came out, we started looking at some internal systems, and there was one that needed updating. So it's surprising when you look around. You know, there are systems out there that have just been running, doing the job, and you go, were they 2010 or 2013? Well, if they're 2010, you've then got the option of moving them to 2013 or just revamping them, and that's what we did, moving that to Power Automate. But yeah, they're just going to stop running. So I would check your ticketing system to see if it's working.
Or just keep your head in the sand.
Yeah, no, in my last company, we had a couple of engagements that were like suddenly people going, we've got this deadline of Microsoft have said that it's going to stop, like fix it for us. So yeah, there were a couple of people who did like notice, but I think that largely it will have gone under the radar. So
I don't know. There's much more Microsoft could have done. Well, they could have had longer notice, but they certainly put a lot of messages out there on the message center and things like that. So yeah, if you are having a bad day, we apologise. Do get in contact. I'm sure between the four of us we could help something out. But if anyone's wondering, no, there isn't a migration tool. Yes, you do have to redesign it from scratch. So go from there.
I thought it was very interesting actually. The advice that they gave was just use Flow. It's kind of there's not some things that was a little challenging to recreate all of the capabilities of 2010 workflow in Flow. But,
plus working out what the workflow did in the first place.
Well, the hardest part was actually having to install SharePoint Destroyer to actually have a look, wasn't it?
SharePoint Destroyer, I like that. I realised, Gary, I jumped ahead one article. I think my abilities in the OneNote and us trying to sync missed there, but we're actually going to talk about the other dev side to Teams.
Yes, so we actually talked about this a while back. There was an incident where loads of messages went missing, and it was actually a case of you couldn't actually export or import messages out of Teams. Well, now you can. So one of it's a preview beta API, but what's been added to Microsoft Graph is it's going to allow you to have the import capabilities to move messages from one messaging app to Teams, so you can recreate those chats. I think this is probably aimed at kind of companies moving from, say, Google into Teams, and they want to keep that history. But up until now, there's actually been no way of doing this. So yeah, if you're looking to kind of move into Teams, this is another a good addition into that kind of.
I guess
story.
Google or tenant to tenant migration's the other big one, especially where mergers and acquisitions take place, bringing those across.
The other potential will be Slack.
That had crossed my mind as well. Yeah.
So
is there an API for Slack?
I don't know.
Yeah.
If there isn't, then I'm sure a UI flow would do it.
Yeah.
That is expensive.
yeah. That sounds pricey and painful. Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. Good to see more of those things coming through. Definitely. I think one of the other articles, if I've got it here, getting productive. Al, I know this one, your favourite topics is productivity, and the productivity score is now generally available.
It's a lovely little thing. The productivity score gives you information about how much you're working, how productive you are, how much you're using different services or not. But I think this is just a theme that Microsoft have really kicked off with Ignite, with all of their talk about well-being and measuring well-being and having metrics around well-being. We talked about it last time, the workplace analytics, that enterprise level information to actually track how busy people are. And this one is essentially just giving you a measure, giving you a benchmark that you can compare to other organizations and just start to look at how your organization is working based on the graph, based on, we talked about the 115 million Teams users, the amount of information that Microsoft actually have to be able to aggregate it and identify what good and bad look like. They're probably one of the very few organizations that have the scale of data that they can actually use and actually kind of give you useful insights into how you should be getting your staff to work to keep them productive, especially as we look at how we're evolving the way we work as well.
And it's worth just being clear, when we talk about it's you as the organization. This isn't about individual statistics. It's the wider org.
Yeah, it's all anonymized. It's all done. Yeah. With volume rather than I think team is the smallest measure they go down to, and that has to have 7 people in it, I think, as a unit to be able to be identified. Otherwise, they aggregate up. But yeah, it's just another good one, like the compliance score and the security score, to kind of just give us insight as an organization. How are we operating? Are we operating
and the adoption, they've had the adoption pack that's been there in Power BI for quite some time, so this is really taking off that. How are people working? Are they working the way that you want them to? Is, as you can see from the chart there, is the trend looking as you want it to? Are people collaborating more? Are you seeing that improvement? And you can sort of look at programs you're running and see how they are making changes to things. So really good to see. And that's just turned on by default, isn't it? Like the rest of Microsoft's
absolutely not. No, you've got to switch this one on. This is the only thing that you actually have to switch on. Everything else is on by default. No, so this one you do actually have to go in and enable, and it's because it's aggregating the graph data. And if there is another one as well. If you're above, just trying to think what the number is. I think it's 100 exchange licenses. There's another one as well, a business continuity report that is also quite similar to it in terms of how you see information about how your organization is operating.
Yeah, I just noticed that. I was looking at the article and it talks about the productivity. We kind of know it, so Exchange, attachments, all that kind of stuff. But it's where it's going to go with Teams as well. And I think there's talk about a organizational like resilience score as well. And agility, operational effectiveness, all that kind of stuff that is going to come from Teams. We've seen a lot of announcements from Ignite about Teams becoming again this one place to go. So your intranet's going to be in there. We're going to have apps with Oakdale in there. pulling all of those analytics to give you that kind of, you know, wide view of your organization. And I think it's good because I think a lot of companies probably don't work enough on, say, like data-driven kind of decisions. Absolutely. Because generally the information is just not there. And you know, it takes effort to capture all that information and to do something useful with it. So to have this kind of out of the box, it's going to be great for organizations who do take that on board, drive it into their adoption work as well. That's going to work really well.
Yeah, and I think this, you know, all of this, because it's all driven from the graph, you know, this is where I think over the coming year you'll see workplace analytics take off, because that really is the tool that they're positioning as, if you want to get true insights into how your teams are working, that's the way to do it, because you can aggregate different data sources, different information, upload it, dice and slice all of this information, put it together in different ways, and then use Power BI and built-in reports to analyze it.
Yeah, very nice. So moving on a bit, I think time for a bit of Power Platform. Just very quickly before we do that, I'm not always known for my focus, but Clarissa, is that the Lord of the Rings world on your jumper?
Yes, this is my
That is
my Middle-earth
amazing.
hoodie.
I love that.
It's very cool. And to continue the geekiness, I've actually got my Clone Wars t-shirt on as well. So I've got the 501st Legion underneath the entirety of Middle Earth.
That's brilliant.
And I've got an Avengers cushion behind me as well. So
oh, really?
got everything
covering all the bases, right?
This is why I put a background on. I just don't have the geek credentials to in the room enough. I think more Lego on the wall and things like that. It's brilliant. So if you are just listening, apologies. Do check out the video, because that jumper is absolutely fantastic, and I may be going to Google that afterwards to try and find it. Power Platform news. I think Gary, you picked up on a couple of these. I think one was the mobile offline for Power Apps. So for those who love designing Power Apps, but maybe get on a train in the UK and they don't work very well, back in the days when we still travelled, having offline would be very useful.
Yeah, this must admit it was just trawling through Twitter and I just spotted this, and you know, mobile and offline generally is kind of, you see them together and instantly gets your attention, because it's what lots of people are after and generally is not there as default. But I think we were discussing this earlier. It's about the model-driven apps, which is interesting because, you know, Canvas has had the ability to do this, but with model, I'm assuming that it will just be able to work out of the box almost.
Yeah, you said
Canvas
it up when
apps is a little hard to
to
make it play offline.
I think with the model driven, you basically flick a switch on each of the entities that you want to make available.
Wow,
and
nice.
That's certainly what I've seen so far. I've not actually tried it on a mobile device, but yeah, you flick a switch on when you're creating the entity, which opens up some quite nice ideas for how you can just choose what you actually want to be able to download and keep offline.
I wonder actually if that, you know, when you're building Canvas apps based off of entities in the CDS as well, I wonder if you can flip that switch and
just have it
affect the Canvas app as well. That would be really interesting.
That would be nice.
I may be living in a dream world over here, but
I would find it interesting because being able to access that data offline and from a developer's perspective isn't too hard. I've played with PWAs in the past and it's not too bad. When you do that and some other bugger goes and updates the same field you're looking at, when you come back online, making sure you sync that and giving a good user experience, be very interested to know how it handles that and how well it handles that. I can imagine, again, for model driven apps, you could probably have a very standard way of doing that. For Canvas apps, how that's kind of told to the user would be, intriguing, I think it's fair to say. But no, a tricky one. And going on to the Power Platform, the other one is the modern fluid. I can't say fluent, not fluid. Fluent controls in Power Apps. So for those looking on the video, probably slightly less rounding in this case, whereas most of the fluent stuff has been more rounding. I think the much better looking things. And again, it's coming to that design, trying to bring everything together and looking the same.
Yeah, I like this move, definitely. One, we've seen Oakdale apps and Oakdale living inside teams. You want it to have that Teams-like experience and not look completely different. And the whole theming thing in Power Apps has kind of been it's been a pain for me over the years that it's been around, because for me, it's always something that should have been dealt with by the platform. Here's how you can do themes, rather than, there's lots of different ways of doing themes, and lots of people have come up with really interesting ways of how to tackle that problem. But it's a lot of work to get those kind of buttons the way that you want, rather than applying a decent theme. So, it's not just changing colors, it's actually changing the way that those controls actually look and function as well. So I'm quite happy about this, to be honest. I think it's a long time.
Interesting. I don't know if it's this article, but looking at this, the general thing seems to be smaller as well. They're making things smaller, whether that's just the way they've set the pictures, but it certainly looks like it'd be an interesting move.
It's always been chunky though, hasn't it? The out of the box Canvas app. Oh, I'm just going to create this from a SharePoint list. Yeah. chunk. And I think that's I think if it is smaller and a little more concise, I think that'll be nicer, because it has always been looks a bit sort of Hello Worldish, doesn't it?
Designed for fat fingers, yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing when you're on a mobile device.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good as well when you've got apps running in factories, or conditions, working conditions where people are wearing these horrible, enormous gloves. They need that really huge button.
I have actually had before Power Platform came out, had the demand from the UX for people to be able to use an iPad Mini with great big fat gloves on, because they're working outside in the rain, and to have it offline. Every time I look at this kind of stuff, I think that app would be so much easier to have built now than it was back then.
Moving on, because we are waffling on for part one a lot. Al, XRM Toolbox.
So I
in a short sense, I know you love this.
XRM Toolbox. We had the London Power Platform user group. We had Carl Cookson doing a session on this, and I have to say it just blew me away. It was just one of those sets of tools that I just went, yep, I need that, and that. Yep. Immediately installed it, and I think I've used it about 3 times over the last 3 days since I learned about it. And it's just kind of
for those of us who weren't there, or possibly were half there and were half cooking dinner at the same time and only caught bits of it.
So it's a community project, and it is a toolbox. There's lots of different tools in it. So to give you an example of what I was using over the weekend, building fetch XML queries to actually get a set of entities back from a CDS table, a set of records back from a CDS table. Using fetch XML, I can build that all up. I could put filters in. I could get the results, see the results, choose the columns, and then I could just export that and drop it into a flow action, which is like, that saves me so much time, rather than just developing it all with flow, testing it, looking at it, and all you have to do is put a connection in, connect to your CDS. But it can do other things. It can document your flow, so it can build a Visio diagram from your flow. It can build a entity relationship diagram for your.
Is this really just for people using CDS? So other people, hi Nigel, if you're listening, who are more focused on the SharePoint side. Is it of interest to them?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to have Visio document for your flow, and say, actually, I'm going to export it as a document with the JSON configuration and everything, so I can actually see it and use it for documentation. Absolutely. It is primarily being built by the Dynamics community. So there's a lot around the common data service and how you manage permissions and stuff. But there's 200 plus different tools in the toolbox. So there's a lot.
For you.
There's going to be something for you. Absolutely. But it was one of those things that I just kind of thought, where have you been all my life? This is just such a great toolbox of things that I really wish I'd had a year ago when I started really sort of playing with the Common Data Service in anger.
And it's free, but not open source, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, so Carl and Jonas, who have been building stuff, there's loads. I mean, when you look at the authors, there's loads of people who are building stuff.
Okay, but it's very much download and use, not. Sorry, Karen.
I was going to say, it's definitely open source.
I'm not allowed to develop anymore.
Yeah, it's. I've seen. I've never really had to use it. I'm sure I will use it, but definitely seeing updates on Twitter quite a lot. It is, the tool that everyone uses. So yeah, there's. I've seen lots of people kind of mentioned for actually building just a part of the toolbox and providing new functionality. So yeah, it's definitely open.
Very nice. Another, going to the tools thing as we wrap up the news, but one tool that I noticed that seems to have passed a lot of people by, and there's something called Clarity from Microsoft. If you've ever done the web analytics, I'm sure most people just analytics, that's all I need, but there's loads of other tools that allowed you to get heat maps from sites and replay user sessions and really get into not just who's accessing, but how are they accessing your site, what are the journeys, what are the funnels, what insights can you get, and they're blooming expensive for the most part. So Microsoft seems to have blown that out of the water by offering this free Clarity tool. So if you go to clarity.microsoft.com, and you get started, and it hooks in with your Google Analytics, we believe. I'm going to pause here because Gary was having a quick play at the beginning. I don't know if you managed to get anything working at all.
No, unfortunately.
Okay.
So the Google Analytics integration is there, but it doesn't seem to connect. But it works in exactly the same way. You basically put a tracking code on the page, and it pumps all the data into, I'm assuming, the Clarity system, and works everything out. But yeah, it's definitely something interesting. Definitely interested to see if this is going to work with SharePoint.
Yeah, absolutely. Because looking at it, and I've only had a very quick scan over it. It looks like it could really help with things like accessibility and just tracking how people are using things. So if it does do the internal, SharePoint Online and all of the different sites and tools that we're using in our tenants, it could be really interesting to see exactly where people are using and how they're using these different tools.
No, I think very interesting. Maybe in the next meeting we can come back and maybe share some experience in that huge amount of spare time that we all have to play around with things.
So I've just clicked on something in the documentation for it, and it says recordings overview, and it says 2 minutes to read, and it has 2 words on the whole page, which is coming soon.
Oh,
that's brilliant.
Yeah, excellent.
That's the best documentation ever.
I'm definitely going to give that a go. Does remind me, I'm hoping that everyone will be able to listen to this show, because we've actually moved to a new platform with the podcast. So hopefully everything should come through, should be seamless. We will be dual publishing for this one to make sure no one misses out. But on that, I might use that opportunity as I've been looking at changing the website for the new platform. I might see if I can put Clarity on, and I can get some heat map and see what people are doing on there. But yeah, it sounds good. Right, a quick run through of what we're all up to. I think a big shout out again to the South Coast Summit, which is coming up next year. Only 347 days, 2 hours, 33 minutes and about 33 seconds left to go for that, based on their website. I probably should say I haven't actually calculated that now, but a really good event.
You are stalking them, aren't you?
No, it is up on their website. So I don't know how they've managed to get a picture of people watching when they haven't held one yet, but we'll ask about that with Aaron Rendell and the team. Does remind me. Yeah, absolutely. Probably a bit too late for most people listening to this, but tomorrow night, so that's Tuesday, 3rd of November, just as the US goes to vote, I'll be speaking at the South Coast user group about Microsoft Search.
So you're speaking tomorrow, are you?
I am speaking tomorrow, yes.
Oh, competition.
Yeah, why? Is there anything else going on tomorrow, Al?
Ah, yes. Yeah, I'm speaking at the Leeds Power Platform user group. So
basically, if you
model-driven
like
apps.
Northerners, if you join Gary and Al up there, if you like the Southerners, for those listening in the UK, come along, join me in the South Coast.
Dear, dear.
Come on, Kev, we're all in it together.
Oh, team.
It's all about being divisive these days, isn't it? That's right. Build a wall between
well,
them.
up to the 5th, yes.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Sorry, Al. What are you're speaking tomorrow on?
What am I doing? Model-driven apps, model-driven power apps for dummies and non-dynamics folk. Introduction to model-driven apps.
Interesting.
I do like how you separated out dummies and non-dynamics folks. I'm like, thank you for calling me a dummy.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was just going to be dummies, but then I thought actually that'll catch too many people.
Yeah,
get the non-dynamics folks in there. But yeah, and then next week I've got another session, productivity in the age of collaboration. So this is focusing a bit on ceremonies, starting the day, finishing the day. How do you actually manage your time? A little bit about meetings and rejecting meetings. So that should be fun.
Just say no, as we covered in the last meeting, podcast as well.
Absolutely.
That's very on brand.
Yeah.
Yep.
What? We all just repeat ourselves, let's be honest, and just spin the words around a little bit.
Change
no one's got to this
the order.
Yeah, absolutely. And other events we've got come up, and I think 3 of us are speaking at this at various times, which is GlobalCon 4. I think, Clarissa, you were speaking at the Turbo Tuesday, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I did October's Turbo Tuesday, and I'm also in the December main event. I'll be talking about how to transition from SharePoint to the CDS, but all about how to get into that data first mindset.
Yeah, I spotted that, and that I have a project coming right up, so it couldn't have been more perfectly timed. So I will be watching.
Because I mean, it's a transition that I'm making myself, and I think it's quite an intimidating transition. At least from my experience, it's been quite an intimidating journey to start. I think just kind of because the CDS has this kind of history with all of the dynamics background, that when you're coming from an Office point of view, it's like you're coming into something that's already been established for ages and everyone knows everything, and you're just like, where do I start? Please help me. So yeah, I wanted to kind of like share that, how to, really get your head into that slightly different gear that CDS requires.
And it is a different gear.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very, very different way of thinking from compared with SharePoint.
It's funny, at the weekend I've been looking at Oakdale and trying to do the sort of CDS style things, and definitely a different gear. It's some realizations of things you shouldn't be doing that way very quickly.
It's even worse if you come from a SQL background and you go, third normal form, normalization, and then you go, it doesn't work with CDS. You've got to think differently.
I had a fun
and sorry, that's the December session, is it, Clarissa?
Yes. Yeah, I don't yet know what day I'm on, so it's all very exciting.
Publish the full.
Everyone's to be announced for time slots, so watch this space.
They announced them for next, because they've got the.
I think so.
I better check what time I'm on then.
I would say I know we've talked about the GlobalCon events quite a bit before, and I'm a big passionate lover of these because you do pre-record, and many people go, I can just watch it in the video, but it's great because you can pre-record, but the speakers still attend and have the chat alongside, so you can ask questions as you're going along. The speakers can ask questions of other people, so you really get that double engagement. It's a really nice chat down the sides with a lot of people, so it's well worth giving it a go as well. Right, I think another one to this, I've got some global dev boot camps coming up. Al, you're speaking at M365 Chicago, but I think we've whittled along a lot from the news. I think we can probably wrap up on part 1, and we've touched stories today, but let's find out from the expert how to tell stories. So thank you for part 1. Please stick around for part 2.